So I would like to first extend a very warm welcome to everybody who's joined in, and obviously to our amazing expert, Megha from Israni Photography. And like I said, Mr. Naman will be joining us shortly. So I'll take this opportunity to introduce Megha to all of you, as you might already know her, but I'll still do the needful. So Megha is the co-founder of Israni Studios, and she's famous for creating dreamy weddings for not just celebrity couples, but all couples who reach out to her. She has been recently very famous for creating Rahul Vedya and Disha Parmar's wedding, but she's been there doing that and creating multiple beautiful weddings for all of us and making the day of all these couples very special. So thank you so much for joining us, Megha.
Thank you so much, Ashna. It's been a pleasure. I think it's a bright Friday afternoon looking at all the attendees out here. So I'm extremely excited for the session and looking forward to making it as interactive, making sure that it's not boring. I know we all are not liking the whole space of doing these online sessions. I think we can't wait to be back in the whole live world. But for now, since we're here, just want to make it as interesting, want to answer as many questions as I can and want to be super interactive than me just talking and you guys just listening. So let's keep a commitment of keeping up the high energy and with making it as interactive as we can.
Perfect. I think everybody would be happy to interact. So just to set the agenda for today's webinar, as you all know, that we'll be discussing all things photography and videography, and we'll be diving into details of pricing strategies, business strategies, the technical details of photography as well. I'd request you to put in your questions in the chat box so we can take these questions at the end of the webinar in the interest of time, and so that even you can get all the answers and we discuss all the important things that we have planned for today. Just to begin with, Megha, I think it's important to understand that, how did you start in the field of photography? Like, what was that inspiring moment that you decided that you wanted to be a photographer or a videographer?
So honestly, let's break the myth here. I've never touched the camera. I have never held the camera, and I can't even click a picture to save my life. I have typically been doing this under the vision of my brother, Israni. He's been a fashion photographer, and I think in 2011 it was his idea, where he felt that there was a huge gap in the industry where there were no candid and professional photography company. There were the old school fatherly age photographers doing photography. So I think it was his vision where he realized that being a fashion photographer, he used to get a lot of inquiries to do weddings, to do candid pictures. And that's when he felt that let's fill in the gap. And he started off this with a friend of his. And I think in 3 months of day starting, they both stepped back and I stepped in. I was into acting myself. So I obviously had a very close relationship with camera because I've always been in front of the camera. So I always knew what it really required, what it was to have a great edit. I was trained by the masters. I was working with Balaji Telefilm. So if anyone who's worked with Balaji, they typically train you out and they kind of teach you the hardworking part of it. I used to work for 18 hours. But being in front of the camera, I used to see trashy edits of the same Saas Bahu sagas that you used to see. So I think I kind of learned my drill from there, and I started hardcore into marketing and sales, and I started the creative aspect of it, that how well can you say a story. And I remember in 2012 when I did my first wedding film, which was Daddy's Angel, and it was very well received on the YouTube, and it went like a viral video back in those days when everybody started appreciating a 8-minute long video where a father was narrating his love and his pride, his daughter. And that's where I felt that, okay, there was a certain need for storytelling in wedding films. And I think that's how we all started off. So that's my journey with starting off a movie called Daddy's Angel.
I think that's quite interesting because as we all think that there'll be like a moment where somebody gets into photography, I think you had like a completely different experience.
Right.
Great. Okay, moving forward, I think when Raman joins in, we can ask him the same question to understand his side of the story as well. I'd like to know that after all these years in the industry that you've been doing this with your brother, do you think you've cracked like a short formula of shooting weddings that works for all couples you work with?
Honestly, there's no short formula that works for every couple, because let's be honest that every couple is different. Every story is different. Every family that you're catering to is extremely different. Be it the Marwadis, the Gujaratis, the Sindhis, the Punjabis, everybody has a very different take on photography, and a lot of us carry baggages from our past. मेरे भाई की शादी में ये हुआ या मेरे चाचा के बेटे की शादी में ये हुआ. So I think there's a lot of past baggages that you carry forward in the next wedding that you're also about to do. So I think that kind of, honestly, there's no short one line formula that I would have, but all I would as a formula say that be consistent. Give the client what they want. So a lot of companies don't realize that, where they want to have an extension to their personality. If you see Israni photography's work, it's quite different. Like, you'll see different kind of movies, you'll see different styles of edits. And I think that comes from understanding the bride's need, their desire, and their aspiration. So the minute you understand what they are looking out for is when you're able to cater a better product. It is not for me, because let's be honest, I'm going to watch that wedding film once or twice at the max. But that client is going to live with the wedding film for the rest of their life, and you want it to be an extension to their personality. So just understand your bride and groom, just understand the family, understand what they are looking out for. And I think that's the right formula. If you've been able to understand what they want, it's going to be a flawless experience for you guys.
Agreed. I think I completely agree there that there cannot be like a one size fits all formula that can work with
Right,
couples. Even
right,
at Wedding Fire, I think we believe that every couple is unique and has their own story. So it is very important that the story gets reflected in the
right,
shoot also that you're doing, and everything else also that the wedding is about.
right.
Awesome. Awesome. I think we kind of do have the same sentiment here. Great.
Yeah.
Moving forward, so this was a question that one of our attendees had asked us. But before I take this one, I'd like to understand, if do you go with like a concept or a story before shooting? Like, do you plan a concept before you approach shooting a wedding, and how does the process flow?
So honestly, we do understand what the events are. So I think the first step is to understand the events, to understand the flow of each sequence of the event. So say if you have 5 functions, you want to understand what is happening in those 5 functions. So we ask a bride and a groom to kind of give us a narrative on, the show flow, or the wedding planner to give us a show flow. So we understand what's happening extremely closely. Post that, we kind of understand the style of video that they're really looking out for. Are they looking out for a fun video? Are they looking out for an emotional video? So there are, I think you can actually break it down into 4 genres of videos, if I can call it. One which is extremely emotional, one which is extremely fun and raw, one which is very unconventional, where you want to see everything which is the BTS of the wedding and the madness of the wedding. That's very unconventional. I think the other one would be where you want to make it very dramatic, very a Sanjay Leela Bansali style. So I think you would want to segmentize your style into 4 different categories. Educate the client, saying that this is how we can go about with a wedding film. Show them the references of that, and then ask them to pick. Ask them to give you a direction, that do you like fun, do you like craziness, do you like emotional. So a bride will always come to you and say that I would want a little bit of emotions, but a lot more of fun and a lot more of madness. So you exactly know what direction your wedding film needs to drive in, so that even your post-production team is extremely well aware of how that has to be catered. So I think that's where how we conceptualize, keeping in mind the couple's aspiration, showing them 4 to 5 different options of this is what can be done. And then even though this is what can be done, a lot of brides tell us, no, I don't want anything emotional, I don't want a cranky film. But hello, good morning, your wedding film has been all about crying, your parents have been sobbing at the bidai, you have been sobbing at the bidai. So how can you not add that, right? So you want to also tell them that, listen, we're taking a direction from you, but at the end of the day, it is our creative call on how we want to weave the story. But we will keep, say, 25% of your expectations in mind, and we will weave it accordingly. A lot of people tell us that we want something very fun, very crazy. But hello, your entire Marwadi wedding was full of rituals after rituals, rituals after rituals. So where is the fun aspect in that? So people at times come with wrong expectations. You need to also tell them that also it's an extension to what happens at the wedding. And then obviously we create, before the wedding, we understand who are the people that we want to interview. So interview part of it creates a story. A lot of times brides and grooms tell us that, listen, we want no interviews at all. We just want a seamless edit. So again, that's a need that you understand, and then you cater to that.
Got it. Got it. I think you very well pointed out about the rituals being like a very important part of the wedding. This was also a question that I would ask by an attendee, that how do you manage to strike a balance between making the video about the couple as well as the ritual? It cannot be like very focused on the rituals, but how do you come up with that balance?
So I think, again, right, like today you need to explain and educate your bride and groom and saying that, hey, what is it that you really want? Because today, let's be honest, your wedding film is hardly from a duration of 5 to 7 minutes on an average, right? So in 5 to 7 minutes, there's only so much that you can show. So I think a right proportion to it would be, I would say, 30 to 40% of the couple, because they are going to live with it, 20 to 25% of the parents and the sibling, and the latter bit of the percentage I would focus on the decor, the people, the grandeur, and the events that have happened. So say stage dancing, your people dancing on a stage, I would kind of focus on those aspects of it. But my 40% focus would always be on a couple, because I think they live with the video and it's all about their emotions, their expressions, and what they felt on that particular day. That needs to be resonated a lot more than what people felt or what the rituals look like, because you obviously also give a longer version to the couple, right? A short film typically needs to be an highlight of the best to best of the shots and the best to best of the moments that you've captured. So obviously you do get a longer film, and then that's where you strike a right balance, where you show a lot of rituals in the longer film, so that the client is happy with both the products, where I think in the short film they get best of themselves, and in the longer version satisfies the need of the parents, because they want to watch the rituals, they want to watch the other aspects of it.
Right. I think very well mentioned. Somebody has also asked, while you were talking about how the balance can be struck, is how do you approach the interview process with the couples? Like, if you could explain.
So honestly, my interview process is very, very organic, very, very natural. It's not something that I planned. I've never planned it in 10 years of my career, and I don't think I can ever plan it with a client. It's always spontaneous. Obviously, we do plan out at what point do you want to do it. Like, it's not like, hey, we're doing it right now and sit on the chair. So that's something that we obviously inform them, that say, hey, on the wedding day, we have say 20 minutes and we want to interview in those 20 minutes. I think the interview process needs to be very natural, where you want to strike a right balance with the client, of being friends with them and not just as photographers with them. So you want to set the ground very clearly that, hey, make it extremely casual, talk your heart out, dil se baat karna, don't judge, and just speak it out. Think I'm a friend of yours and go all out with sharing your story. And I think there's no set of questions that I've ever planned for a bridal interview or for a groom, or say even for a friend. It's a free-flowing conversation, just the way Ashna and me are having. She asked me a question, I answered her. From my answer, Ashna picks up the next question. So I think your next question always needs to be picked up from the relevant conversation. So you cannot go in and order, Acha, how does it feel? When did you guys meet? How much time it has been? It cannot be mechanical. It has to be from the first conversation to the second conversation. It has to just flow very, very seamlessly. And as an interviewer, you need to be very attentive to understanding that you need to pick up the right thing from them. So example, the bride and groom said that, it's been 10 years that I have known him, and I don't know at what point in time did we start dating, but it's been a crazy roller coaster journey. So it's been a roller coaster journey. So now your next question can be, what's been the biggest high in the relationship, or what's been the biggest low in the relationship? Because she used the word roller coaster is when you derive your next answer, your next question through that. So I think that's where a seamless conversation happens, where it's not monotonous, where it's not that you've come with a WhatsApp chat and you're saying that, okay, you know what, give me these 10 questions. So I don't think that would be the right way. Hello, Mr. Raman Deepak. Hi. Should I just
Hi Megha, how are
introduce
you?
him very
I'm
well?
so sorry
Should I
for being late.
introduce the man who does maximum weddings in Delhi, who's been killing it with his fantastic work? I think he's a social media king in the wedding industry. So yeah, I give it to you, Ashna, to continue his introduction. But I think I'm
Thanks
good at
Megha.
introducing him.
Thanks Megha for the lovely introduction. But whatever I do, I cannot match your wits. You're the best at the game. Late entrant, but now at the top.
No, no, just learning. I
The
think
most
every.
young entrepreneur in our industry who's doing really well.
Thank you,
I mean,
thank you.
it's great to have panelists who know each other so well and can talk such good things. So I think that's the icing on the cake for the webinar. But I will take a little moment and introduce Mr. Raman since he's just joined us. I think a lot of people were waiting for you as well. So just to do the needful, as we all know, Mr. Raman Dipak, he's the man behind the famous Dipak Studios. Mr. Raman has been in the industry for over a decade, and along with his brother, Mr. Mohan Dipak, he has expanded his father's studio, which was started back in 1962. Dipak Studios, as we know, is a preferred choice for a lot of couples, not only in India, but also globally, and also by a lot of celebrities. Now that we're discussing about how interviews are important in a wedding film, another aspect that's really important while we are creating a wedding film is music. So I would like to know from Raman, you first, that how important is music in a wedding film, and what is the creative process of selection like?
So music is the most important part of the wedding film because that is what will make your wedding film look different, feel different. So if you have a couple, if you have a bride who's been following you from years, so she would know mostly all the songs you have already used. To give that newness to the film, so I always encourage my editors to find newer songs. And these days there's an era of making original music as well. So there are a lot of, this whole era right now is of connectivity. So you have these young bands who make good music, new music. You can pick them for your wedding film, introduce them to your couples and tell them this song will look. It's difficult to make couples be vision, but because they don't want a new song, they want us to be famous. But again, you have to make your couple realize that if you are using very famous songs, everything will look the same. Like उनकी friend में भी अगर वो गाना use हुआ है and आपने भी वो गाना use कर लिया, like there's a meme which is going around कि please मेरी शादी की entry पे दिन शगनादान नहीं लगा.
Right.
So always look for new age singers like Pratik Kohad and all the sounds which feel and make you feel like the wedding is like very classy, because that will add that extra glamour
Right.
to the whole wedding film.
Right. Megha, would you like to add something to that?
I think he's said it all. I think thanks to your apps like your Wing and your Ganas and stuff like that, where a lot of young artists are getting opportunity to showcase their work. So I think what you should really look out for always as a wedding photographer, I say Shazam is one of the most important apps that, I, even if I'm out at a personal gathering, if I hear something nice, I always Shazam the song down, because you always need to be attentive for good music. So I think that's something that has always been there. But I think young artists are really doing a great job, like he mentioned, Pratik Kukarkain's, the Chai on Toast, and there's so many young artists who come out with their own versions of the songs, and they do original stuff also. So always keep an eye for that. Always understand what the bride and groom are also wanting. If it's a typical Marwadi family, let's be honest, they will trash a great English music on your face. They'll say like, "Aapne kya dala hai?" If you're working with a Gujarati client, you want to kind of have a little touch of that Guju thing in the wedding film, or somewhere you want to add that touch. If you're working with an NRI client, if you give them a Sanjay Leela Bansali song, they might trash it on your face. So you want to know which kind of a client are you working with to cater to what kind of music. So always keep that in mind, to which particular client are you catering to.
Got it.
Quick tip here. A lot of people use YouTube to search for songs. The YouTube algorithm will once or twice, if you play a new song, it will take you back to a popular song. But if you're using Apple Music, and you're listening to a new independent artist, so they will club the independent artist and you can look for newer songs from there as well. So algorithm at Apple Music works better than YouTube for suggesting you independent good music.
Good music.
I think that's a great tip for the photographers in terms of how they can move forward creating and selecting music for the videos. Before I move to the next question, I think I'd like to take back a moment because when we started out, we dived into the journey of how Megha started her journey as with Israni photography. So I think everybody would like to know it from you as well. That how did you start on this journey of being a wedding photographer and
So
videographer and
it's
start
quite
working?
similar to Megha's because we actually
We
inherit
both
a family legacy of
yeah.
being in the photography business. So mine was started in 60s
Right.
with my Dadaji painting by hand because in those times there were no cameras. So he had to hand paint the portraits. From there to here, rest is in front of all of you. So I'm from an engineering background. I wanted to join this business because I somehow felt that the brand was unexplored. From a smaller city like Faridabad, getting onto a bigger platform in Delhi. So that's my biggest achievement, I think, till date.
I think all of us would agree. I mean, knowing Dipak Studios is so famous, I mean, that definitely is a great achievement. And I think there's many more to come as we go forward. Um,
Yeah.
Great. I think now that we're also discussing, like you mentioned, a great tip for the photographer that how they can move forward selecting music. Another thing that I would want to ask for the interest of everybody is that how well in advance do you think couples should confirm with the photographer or the videographer for you guys to plan accordingly? Since there's an entire process involved of discussions and everything else. So, what is the timeline that you think is the most suitable that you should get a confirmation?
I think an ideal timeline should be anywhere from 5 to 8 months, an ideal case. But thanks to COVID, we've been also working on 1 month prior, 15 days prior, because families have become very uncertain and they do not want to plan, get their advances stuck at this point in time. So I think in the last 1 year, we've seen a lot of last minute weddings coming up, and I think we as brands have to be ready to also cater to that. But an ideal scenario case would be that a bride should book. I think the first thing that a bride already does is that she books a makeup artist and her photographer. So she closes her makeup artist first, and I think the second thing that she closes is her photographer, and then everything else comes on a closure. So I think 6 months should be a fair enough great timeline to close deals.
Raman, would you like to add?
So I would always encourage couples to come to me as early as possible because, like, if the couple wants to do a pre-wedding shoot in Ladakh and he has a wedding in November or December, so there's a certain period till that date only you can reach Ladakh and do your pre-wedding shoot. So the earlier you come to us, the more time you can spend in your discussing your pre-wedding planning your pre-wedding shoot because in our photography business, pre-wedding shoot has become a big differentiator. And if you have done that well, you have already won the client in the first go. So that means that the couple will have full trust in you, and all through the wedding events, that couple will give you ample time for the portraits, for all the different creative things you want to do. So as early you come to us, we'll plan a beautiful shoot for you, and then everything falls in sync. If you're a latecomer, things won't fall in place in that beautiful manner if you come early.
Got it. Got it. I think that you very well mentioned that how pre-wedding also needs like a certain planning, and you need to be in a particular location during a set time, since for the pictures to look as beautiful as you want them to be. Which moves me to my second question. Next question basically is how different is the conceptualization and planning of a pre-wedding shoot as compared to of the planning of the shoot for like the other events that are happening during the course of the wedding.
I would just put it in one line saying that I think at a pre-wedding, we are directors, we are event planners, we are stylists, we are also someone who's taking care of the hair, makeup. So I think we are nothing less than a production house who's here to produce a music video for you. So we're wearing a lot of different hats at that particular point, because typically at a wedding, the wedding planner, the decor, the light wala, there's so many other aspects involved to make a wedding look big. But at a pre-wedding, I think solely the responsibility is put on us. And as experienced players, you want to make sure that your looks are right, your hair and makeup is right, your location reikis are right. If you're exploring a new location, it's very important to do a reiki before. If you've gone to that location several other times, then you should know what spots and at what timings. So I think there's a lot more planning. So I think I call ourselves like that really consumes a lot more out of us, because we're also doing the job of planners. We're also planning the logistics, the car, the travel, the props. There's so many other things involved. So it really consumes a lot out of like a photographer. People think it's a very tiny product, but trust me, when you dig into diving deeper into doing a masterpiece product where you want to create something which is unique, which is different at a unique location, it can really kill you also. Like it's one of our most aspirational products. I think all wedding photographers love doing pre-wedding, because the kind of rapport that we create with a couple in those 2 days, like we typically become family for them. We're living together, we're having our meals together, so it's a great time for the team to bond with the bride and groom also. Like Raman said, that then the bond at the wedding is translated very, very beautifully, right? So you always want to get the same team to do your pre-wedding and wedding, but it typically makes us do everything that today photographers think, hamara kaam hai sirf aake photo and video lena. No, that's not about it. There's a lot of back end work that happens, which just doesn't, like, people just don't see it, but there's a lot that goes around it.
Right. Great. And I think now that you've mentioned that, how pre-wedding shoots are more personal with the couples and you get to strike like a bond that works better. So what are these few questions that you think as photographers you should definitely be asking the couples before you start on the process of, say, getting into the wedding shoot, pre-wedding shoot side of things as well as the wedding shoot, since now is the time where you're having better conversations and discussing the larger picture?
Okay. So the question was the type of questions that we should ask the couple?
The short questions.
So
that you should.
I would first like to add to the first answer about the pre-wedding shoots. I typically feel whatever Megha said is totally true. So for that reason, what we do is, since we are into the multiple wedding space, we try to send one coordinator on top of the team who takes care of all the hassles. He is the event manager for that pre-wedding. So we've been doing that for quite some time now. Because of that, the whole experience of the pre-wedding is very smooth. That's why clients keep coming back to us, and that we are very well placed in the field of pre-wedding, more than the weddings, because people have a certain kind of trust, and my team is always traveling. So, like, if you ask me how many times my team goes to Rishikesh in a year, the number is astronomically high. So right from planning a pre-wedding in India to planning a pre-wedding in abroad, everything has to be taken care of. It's a very, lately in the last 2-3 years, I've realized if you are doing that pre-wedding well, everything will fall in line. So for the questions about the pre-wedding shoot, whenever the couple comes to me, the booking is done through my branding. That first thing is already done, the advance has come, everything is done. The trust and the belief is made when we start our discussion for the pre-wedding shoot, if the couple is opting for it.
Right.
So earlier we used to treat it like this, it's just a small thing which you have to do with the wedding. But now we think it is the most special thing before the wedding that has to be done. So it is now made more important. So I truly, like, if I have a wedding abroad, I push my couples to, like, I had this wedding in Amsterdam. So I push one of the couple that we have 2-3 days in between, which are free. So if you could just arrange for the ticket and reach there, so that 3 days you can get your pre-wedding shoot done there. So if I have opportunities of traveling abroad, I'll just push it to 2-3 clients and things, because everybody wants to make it large. Indian weddings is not about playing subdued or playing subtle. It's all about making it large. So every couple wants to be like their wedding to be a fairy tale wedding. They should be famous everywhere in social media. And the whole experience of the pre-wedding is something which is like, you can say that pre-wedding, the 2 days of the pre-wedding shoot are the best days of their courtship. And every couple agrees to it.
Right. Right, right.
So first we ask them where do you want to go for a pre-wedding shoot, and then we understand. Like I had this one couple who could not travel because of the family permissions. What we did for them was we just did a shoot in ITC Grand Bharat, and just to put some tadka into it, we got a private jet arranged at a private airport, so that the couple should get the feel that their pre-wedding shoot was large.
Right,
So you
right.
have to push in that extra bit so that the couple is trusts you a lot, believes in you, and everything will be smooth after that.
Right. Another thing that now that we're discussing that how there's a huge logistics side of things involved when you are planning a pre-wedding shoot, I would like to understand that is this a similar set of logistics that's involved when you are shooting a destination wedding, and how do you plan out on the team that you for each wedding basically? How do you decide on the crew that will go and shoot the wedding?
So I think I'll answer that very quickly, saying that you need to understand the scale of the event in terms of the location, firstly. Secondly, is what is the strength of people, whether it's 1,000 people, 2,000 people, or 300 people. In all of those cases, your team sizes would differ. And I think the third most important aspect is to understand that is the family, how focused are they on photography? There are families that we work with, a certain community in the Marwadi sector where every father wants a photographer dedicated to them. So even if it's a 400 people gathering, you need 5 photographers over there. Today we would have done like a reception. Recently we did a reception with 4,000-5,000 people, but the bride said, you know what, these people are like my father's workers, because she was an MLA's daughter. She said, I don't want more than 3 photographers at all, even though the crowd was say 4,000-5,000. Now in your head 4,000-5,000, you would at least imagine 6-7 photographers, logically. But at times you want to understand that what is the need of that event. Now that reception pictures are something that the bride was never going to look at, because she said, I don't even know a single human over here, so just have one photographer for my father, have one photographer for me and my husband, and have one photographer station just to do the basic coverage, ताकि दिखे कि अच्छा photography पे हमने पैसे खर्च किए and team थी. So typically that's the notion. So at every event, like a haldi event could happen with just 2 photos and 2 cinematographers could be, thoroughly enough if there's a crowd of 100 to 200 people. So event-wise event, if the Sangeet is larger than life, you have a long, entrance. If it's an outdoor, you have 2 functions, you have 2 pre-function areas. So everything depends on your location, your number of people, and last but the most important is the client's requirement. We did a wedding in Rajkot in November where the family wanted 7 photographers because they had positioned 1 photographer at one entrance, 2nd photographer at one entrance, the 3rd photographer with the father. So the placements of photographers were done very strategically because they had a vision like that. They wanted to create it like an IFA where you walk in, you have a paparazzi capturing one shot, you move to the next entrance you have. So again, you have to understand, though there were only 1,000 people at that wedding. Now, in a 1,000 people wedding, you don't see 7 photographers usually, but it was the requirement of the client. So you kind of cater and you plan it out on paper, saying ki what photographer will do what kind of a job, so that you're not also giving a client a repetitive job, right? You don't want the same photographer, 2 photographers doing the same thing. Then it just gets very monotonous.
Right. Raman, would you want to add something?
About how do we plan the team? So my first,
Right.
so since I have the complete team in a house, so what I do is I have a certain category of lead cinematographers and certain category of lead photographers. So because for everybody who's booking Dipak Studio should be the same. So we equally divide talent in each and every team, so that everybody who has taken up Dipak Studios, so they should feel that certain uniformity. They shouldn't say that I've seen the work of that certain bride on your page that is far more better than what you have done for me. So for me, the biggest thing deciding the team is uniformity in all assignments. That is point 1. And point 2, we see the preference of the team which has gone for the pre-wedding. They should be at least one person or 2 people should be common in the team which is going for the wedding.
Right. Right. Great. I think now that we've discussed that how it's very couple centric as what is their requirement, and hence that's how we divide the team, because the end product has to come out really well as the couple's aspirations need to be met. One thing that comes to my mind is that So there are now with the trend that there are day weddings happening as well. Like there was a time when night weddings were the norm, but we've moved to a time where day weddings have also become really popular. So what is the difference in the shooting style and maybe the equipment, and how do you plan out to create a visible difference in terms of how a day wedding is shot and how a night wedding is shot?
I think visually we all love day weddings because I think the colors are extremely natural. We don't have to play with any sort of artificial lighting at that point in time. It looks a lot more brighter, it looks more real, it looks more natural. So I think we all would hoot for a daylight wedding, evening sundowner wedding, because you do not want to work with any kind of flashes or any kind of LED lights or any kind of external artificial lighting. So I think the requirements do differ when you do an indoor wedding to an outdoor event. You will suddenly see the same photographer's job, which is like say 100 on 100. The minute he does a evening event, you'll be like, यार मजा नहीं आ रहा है. Now मजा नहीं आ रहा है, photographer same है, lens same है, but obviously वो lighting में फर्क है. So that does play a very important role. But also I think what difference in equipments would be only adding a little bit of external lights, telling your event planner or wedding team that listen, you need face lights. When we do sangeets, we insist on a particular kind of face lights. We want yellow lightings. We do not prefer working with lightings like amber and pink colors because they kind of don't show the real skin tone. We always tell the client that listen, we want to see the real skin tone, right? And real skin tone can be seen with your yellow color, with your white color. Even at times blue is an okay color, like you want to create a blue environment, so blue and white works really well on photography, but we avoid colors like orange, pink, ambers, greens. It's very hard on post-production to kind of weave off those colors and they look really dark. So you educate your client also, and I think the only thing that we come in and add is we add a LED lights of ours, whether they're small pocket size or they're large LED, depends on the space and depends on the event. We kind of place artificial lights, but I think I'm very happy with the way people are actually moving to daylight weddings. Marwadis do have finally understood that you don't want to do a fairas while people are sleeping, yawning. We've had brides and groom while they're taking fairas, they're typically yawning at that point in time, and you're like, what, like wake up, you're not smiling, right? So you'll see the energy difference. There's a huge energy difference also in every person. You do a midnight wedding, you'll see the energy at the lowest, but you do a afternoon evening wedding, you'll see the energy at the highest level. So you obviously want to always hoot for daylight weddings, and the decor looks pretty. There's nothing that takes away from. You do basic decor also, it'll yet look pretty. You do the maximum decor in the night also, it yet will not give you the same charm.
Right. I think we've all agreed. I think in the last 2 years, since people moved to doing day weddings, there's nothing more beautiful than day wedding. It has a different charm.
The catalyst to all the day weddings is COVID only. Because of COVID, every wedding had to be taken out from the city, and it went to Jaipur, it went to all those boutique cities where you have these palaces and you're doing destination weddings. So all that day wala thing is the birth of destination wedding only, because you have when you enter you have that day mehndi, and then people have started to understand they pay for just 2 days. So on those 2 days they want to do 4 events. So that's why the fairas have moved to the evening time. That has added to our labor and our everything, but we also enjoy it because you get proper makeup while you're shooting a bride. You get proper faira shots. And one more thing which I want to add about day and evening wedding was whenever you were doing an evening wedding, our team size becomes large because every photographer has an assistant carrying a light. Every videographer has an assistant carrying an LED. So the team size becomes big. So in day weddings, they don't need that light. So assistants are not closer to the cameraman. So they look more prettier with lesser number of people. You don't see a lot of photographers around. So I feel the trend of day weddings is here to stay, and we really love it.
Awesome. I think we are all vouching in for day weddings as well because, like you said, I think the pictures with the Bollywood stars also opting for day weddings. We've all seen beautiful pictures come out, and more couples are adopting it and liking how things come out. Great. And another thing that I think now that we've mentioned that how there's a light difference of minute differences, but can make a lot of difference in the end product of the shoot. I'd like to understand from you that what are these very say obvious and small changes which sometimes as a photographer or videographer people might ignore, but can create a huge impact on the quality of the work that is produced by the end of it.
I think a lot of people, a lot of photographers are not using the proper lighting equipment. They would buy the most expensive camera, they would buy the most expensive lens, but they will not spend like, I know a lot of videographers, cinematographers who will buy like the latest camera which has come out, the latest lens which has come out, but they will not invest in a good mic. They will not invest in a good lighting equipment, or they will not invest in a good gimbal or in a good tripod, because stability in terms of video is the most important aspect, and lighting in terms of photography is the most important aspect in that field. So I feel if you're investing a lot in your equipment, also invest a lot in your accessories. You need to get it right, and you need to get it right while the time of shooting, because there is no rewind button or there's no re-clicking button in our work. So I feel that everybody should experiment. Like if you are using a Mag mode, they are coming out with Magbox. They are coming out with newer things. You should always look out for, like, a lot of people use. I think a lot of, that's a quick tip for all photographers. A lot of people use a softbox during the weddings, but when they are using a softbox, they should only use while doing the portraits. If they're using it while doing the Jaymala, it will spoil the shot which is taken from the back, like from the back of the couple, because that softbox will take up all the huge space and look clumsy. Even in Photoshop, you'll not be able to recreate the whole scene. You should not use a softbox while shooting a Jaymala.
Yeah. Right.
So these are few
Megha,
things which one has to take care of.
Megha, would you want to add to it?
I think I kind of agree to the same, that people think that buying a great camera means I'm a great photographer, but it's a lot. I think a lot of the magic happens through the right lighting. I think a lot more with the correct lenses and the usage of lenses. So people say that, hey, I have a kit of 4-5 lenses, but then if you don't know how to use those lenses to its optimum use, and at what point in time to use what lens. So people get stuck with an 85 because, hey, I'm a candid photographer, so I just want to show my creativity part of it, but not realizing that at every given point at a wedding you have to do different things with different lenses. So when you're capturing, I've seen a lot of photographers, and that's an internal issue that every team has, that if there are 3 photographers placed, everybody wants to do the bride and groom, right? Like everybody wants to do creative shots, sabko wo, fireworks chahiye, sabko wo varmala wala shot chahiye. But what people forget is that, there's something called an audience reaction, there's something called an opposite reaction. So you don't always want to run behind the wow shots, but as a team, you want to coordinate your shot, make sure that one is playing on a wide angle, one is playing on a telly, one is playing on an audience reaction. That's why you give a client a great product of a holistic coverage and just not one aspect of it. So I think lenses need to be discussed before you start shooting. And for us as wedding photographers, let's be honest, it's quite a cut, copy, paste, right? Like we know how a Varmala is going to take place, we know how the Feras is going to take place, we know Bharat kaise aati hai, Sangeet ki entry and exit kaise hoti hai. So I think it's not the client's job, but it is our internal job. When we all appoint a show director or a coordinator on event, it is their job to guide the team, saying that, okay, one person is doing wide, one person is doing the reaction. You do not want to miss out on anything. So optimum use with the right set of lenses and this right set of lighting, so that they're not even coming in each other's frames, right? 80% of the time you'll see I've clicked a great angle, but you see a photographer in the opposite side of it. So you want to have a very seamless coordination where no one's hampering each other's work also. So I think that's something that should be paid a lot of attention to.
Right. I think somebody had asked here that what are the angles that you explore? So somebody's asked that, while shooting a Sangeet performance, what are the correct angles that one should explore so that the shoot doesn't become boring?
So I think a basic is that anybody would do is having 3 angles at a Sangeet. One is your master, which is your wider and the whole stage that you want to capture. One is your gimbal, because the kind of shots that a gimbal on a wide lens gives you, it's it's like you're creative. It's very pretty. It gives you the creativity of a product. And I think the third angle would be your close-up shots, which is your tele shots, whether you shoot it on a 85 lens, and at the same time you're doing your audience. So I think 3 is a minimum requirement for a Sangeet, and then obviously a maximum of 4 to 5 would make it no less than watching an IFA show, right? So if you give us the leverage of having 4 and 5 cameras, obviously your product does come out better, because you do not give the excuse of saying that, okay, you know what, someone passed the camera. So I would love to have two master angles, because even in master you can have one extreme wide of the stage and one like a little closer of the stage, so that you're able to see better expressions. Again, depends on the scale of the event, but a 3 is, I think, a bare minimum that one should have to capture a Sangeet well.
There's also the point that now that we discussed pre-wedding shoots, proposal shoots have also become really big. People have now proposal shoots are like the new trend, where they want to see the first look or the proposal shoot. So how do you plan on shooting that, since like it's like a newer trend that's picked up? What is the difference in shoot, if there is any, and how do you approach that?
So honestly, the difference in proposal shoots is that there's no budget, firstly. Secondly, they all want to work with a team of 1 photo, 1 video. So I think that's the challenge one. But we like doing proposals because I think they're really cute. They're very intimate. It's about 2 people coming together. It's the first thing. If you do this right, you know the client is not going to go anywhere else, but is going to come back to you for all your further, from there, there's a roka happening. From there, there's an engagement happening, and so on and so forth. So I think as a marketing thing, you should always pick up a proposal shoot. You should never let go of it. 1 photo, 1 video is sufficient enough to capture a smaller, intimate proposal shoot. And I think doing reels for proposal shoots are a great idea if you want to be trending, because people like seeing newer ideas, right? Like, be it someone doing it in a hot air balloon, be it someone doing it in a helicopter, doing it at a helipad, someone doing a treasure hunt with the girl. So these are cute, fun aspects, and people always look out for newer ideas for it. So I think it just does well for both the ends. It gets you a new...
And the market is also maturing for it. There are different companies in Delhi or in any other city who are doing these proposals. Like you can just share the contact of that company with the couple and everything will go smooth. So proposals are one thing which every couple wants to do. Now this has become like one of the ceremonies in the wedding. So this is becoming a more of a ritual kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think you've always taken inspiration from the Western world of it, where proposals always have been done internationally, but in ours, parents kar lete the and ho jata tha. But now I think it's a need of the hour, where the bride says, "Hey, where's my proposal ring?" Kind of a stuff.
Right. And now that proposals are definitely like the new norm, and more people are adopting it. And now that we've discussed so many technicalities and so many trends that have come into the picture and all the changes that have been happening also, I would like to understand from you, what has been that most challenging situation that you faced while you were shooting a wedding, and how did you overcome it?
Every wedding is a challenge. In every wedding which we go, we have to face certain kind of a challenge. So the beauty of it is that a photographer has a lot of things in his bag. So every time there's a challenge, every time there is something or the other, we overcome it very quickly. We are like early adopters. Nothing can go wrong with the photographer. If अगर ये नहीं होगा तो वो हो जाएगा. Like 22 years in this, I have never felt helpless, because koi na koi reason. I still remember one of my team missed a plane to Calcutta, and before the team landed, I was able to hire a photographer and send it for the bride's mehndi before my team could take the next plane and reach there.
Right.
So nothing's a challenge for a photographer. Wrong question.
I think it perfectly explains how then every photographer has to always be on their toes to be ready for whatever comes in and have a plan B always. Right.
I think I agree to the same. I don't think I would have any. We all face challenges, I think, on a daily course of life. Missing flights, not having a COVID test, and then suddenly, you realize some airline wants to see a COVID test. Was one of our recent, things. My team was traveling to Bangalore for a wedding, and suddenly they realized. So I think, like you said, we always have plan Bs in place. We always have backups. If your network is strong, if your connections are strong. I know if I'm ever stuck in Delhi, I just have to make one call. And I think so does Raman know that if he's ever stuck in Bombay, he just has to do one call. So I think times have changed, and we're friends first, and then competitors across. For a client, I think we are competitors, but I think we always admire each other's work. So I think we have our internal groups which help us really cope up with challenges. So I think. Not really. I think there are no challenges, and I think challenges are great because they make us, like, the next time we were doing a Bangalore wedding, we were way prepared. So you make a mistake and then you know how to solve that mistake the next time.
Right. I think now that we've discussed all things technical, challenges, and everything, I'll move a little to the business strategy side of things. And as you also mentioned that there were new challenges that came in with the emergence of COVID in our lives, that RT-PCRs were important and everything. But I think how did the pandemic also acted in a way that it made us very dependent on technology, and we've become more technically savvy, which also basically gave a rise to the popularity of wed tech platforms. Like we are here today doing a webinar for Wedding Buyer India with all of you on Google Meet. So I think technology has been greatly impacting our lives in the last 2 years. So coming to understand that, how do you think the emergence of wed tech platforms and the popularity of wed tech platforms in the last 2 years has impacted your business, and how has the booking process evolved in these 2 years?
I think it has made a huge impact, because gone are those days when people really insist that, hey, we want to do a physical meeting with you and only then we will book you, right? There was an era where clients said, acha aao hamare ghar pe meeting karo and then we'll book you. But today, with all these platforms across, with brides knowing exactly what they want, I think brides have become a lot more aware of their choices in terms of makeup artist and photography per se, that I think they are the decision makers over here for sure. They kind of make their head up and say, you know what, this is what I want. And I think in that case, all these platforms really help us, because they kind of showcase our work at a very larger level. And you have review systems on all these platforms, which again help a bride for a better decision making. Having said that now people are a lot more open to kind of booking and closing deals via a phone call, via a Zoom call, via getting the numbers extremely quickly, right? There was a time when when you could not trace a person, you had to go to Google, you had to find the right contact. I think that entire space has been evaded ever since we've had some great platforms helping us promote. It's just not we who have to promote ourselves, right? It's great to see other people harping about the work that we do. So I think that way it has really taken the business to a next level. Brides have an aspiration that, hey, will you get us featured on these platforms? So suddenly, if you see, bride feels that these platforms pe hamara feature hona is like an esteemed and a prestigious issue for them. So I think these are things that we really love working with, because I think it's a win-win situation for both the parties. It's a win situation for us, it's a win situation for the platforms, where they get to showcase daily new content and creative content, and they're giving the bride the kind of knowledge and the variety of vendors which first we didn't have, right? First, gin chun ke there were 7-8 players in Bombay, there were 5 players in Delhi who typically used to rule the market. So if you ask us, we don't like these, because now I think the opportunities are a lot more. But I think when you get a larger opportunity, you also want to play a better game. It always tells you, when you have other smaller competitors with you, you also know how to uptight your game and play the bigger game. And then they are the ones who help you plan better and expand your visions.
For me, the VidTech platforms have become the second Google. I still remember that I used to buy Google AdWords, and in my early days when I started my business, I used to buy Google AdWords a lot, and everybody used to Google for a good photographer in Delhi, and that's how I used to acquire my clients. But these days, nobody goes to Google for looking for a photographer. Even if they go to a Google, the first 6 or 7 AdWords would be for a VidTech platform. Either it'll be you or some other competitors of yours. So the customer acquisition has really become like if a client has a middle budget or an average budget or upper middle budget, I'm not talking about the richer clients or the bigger weddings, they come through the event managers. I'm talking about the general wedding. They definitely, for anybody who's starting a new business, he should enroll into all these VedTech platforms. He should look for the best VedTech platform, take the premium membership for that, because it's all about the eyeballs. It's all about the customer acquisition cost. So in the beginning, you have to have a bigger customer acquisition cost. Once you get famous, that cost comes down. Like for me, being on this VedTech platforms, it's not a necessity, but I like to be there because I have a lot of fake competitors having the same names. So rather than they putting a profile on your VedTech platform with the same name, why not I should have it there as well? So my funda is like that. But for all the newcomers, this is like where you grow, from where you grow.
Right. I think you very rightly mentioned that how wedding platforms have become the Googles for finding vendors for your wedding. Because I think there'll be no better example than saying that, like in November last year, Wedding Wire India saw 57% growth in the registered couples, because now couples, since this adoption has increased, we saw couples searching for different vendors for their weddings, checking out reviews on each of the vendors' profile, and finally then making the call as to go ahead with whatever vendor and deciding. And I think photography and videography was one of the most booked categories also on the platform. So I think very rightly said, Google for wedding vendors is now all VedTech platforms. This actually also takes me to my next question is, like Megha had also mentioned, how reviews have started becoming very integral. What is your viewpoint on it, Raman? Like how important do you think are real couple reviews, and how does it help you with influencing couple decisions?
Even after putting so much time into this business, even after getting a big name, becoming a brand, I still crave for reviews. Whenever a client feels good about us, I myself send her a message that write a review for us. So for me, getting a review from the client is like a stamp of belief, stamp of trust that whatever we did was right and the couple is really happy with us. So more than showing it to the world, for me it is like a full stop, good full stop in a happy manner that I have completed the job successfully. So I still have that crave even after so many years to doing it right.
Right. I think reviews, since they impact your business, another thing I think which is very important if you're running a photography or videography business is the pricing of each packages that you have. So how do you go about updating the pricing strategy of the services that you provide, and what are the factors that you take in place?
I think it's very subjective, because you will kind of put in your accounts into place in terms of what are your expenses versus what is it that you want to take home at the end of the day. So honestly, with companies like us, with each rising year, our packages kind of increase, because I have people who've been there with me for 5 and 7 years, right? So maybe the newer sort of people would do this at half the price, because they're working with newer talent. We're working with older talent, so their salaries are way more higher, versus a new talent would source a salaried guy at a cheaper price. So I think this is something which is very subjective, very relatable. There are some people who are happy with 5% margin. There's some people who are happy with a 40% margin. So completely up to you to what suits your stomach and what you and what would keep you happy. Also keeping in mind that it's typically a 6-monthly season, right? So you also want to cap the fact that we, as other companies or as other industries, we don't have work 365 days a year. We typically have work only for those 120, 125 days, tops that you have work. So you want to manage your maths in the right manner, with making sure that you're a profitable company, with making sure that you're also not extremely aspirational for the bride and groom, that they can't afford you. So you need to be value driven at the end of the day, and whatever you feel gives you value.
Right. Raman, would you want to add?
Yeah, I really want to add on to this is first, in your initial stages, build a brand. Your market value, your price is exactly related to that. First of all, create a good profile, create a good brand. Once the brand is created, while you're creating the brand, if you get a good couple, a couple which is very lively, which is very beautiful, can give you good mileage, or even if it's a collaborative wedding, go for it. because you need to reach a certain stage. I have seen so many people who started like doing weddings for free, and now they are the biggest brands in wedding photography business. I still
Right.
remember bride coming up to me like 5 years back. HOTC was doing their wedding film for free in Jaipur. They would be starting by then, and now they are a big brand in the industry. So while you are starting the brand, there is no pricing. You go by your expenses. You can always be a profitable company, because without the profits, you'll never able to get good equipment. You'll never able to. You will not be able to invest in good lenses, good editing equipment. Everything is important. And rightly, what Megha said is like, this is a 6 months business, and you have to pay your employees for all the 12 months. So you need to plan for the other 6 months when there will be no business as well. So your pricing should be according to your cost. But while building a brand, in case you're not getting good profits and the couple is really good and he can give you good mileage, he can give you good reels, the couple is very vibrant, couple is very active, just go for it. Don't think about the price. And I would give a lower price than for a wedding in India, just because that exposure is very important. For a
Right.
blogger, I would go for a lower price if she comes up to me, because those kind of wedding create the right noise for the brand.
Got it. Right. I think we've discussed pricing, we've discussed everything. There's a question that Shilpa from the attendees is asking, that what about contract? What are the things we must mention in the contract paper?
Megha's an expert on that.
So I think what your contract should clearly mention is your deliverable timeline. If I have to start with, the first thing that my contract goes across with is the team size, is the date, event, basic details of the event. I think your team size is extremely important to mention. On what day, what team do you have? Post that, the deliverables and the deliverable timelines. Whether you say 90 days, 60 days, 120 days, for whatever each of your product is, right? Because each product would take a different timeline to deliver. So please mention your timelines is very important. Please mention your payment terms of how you would want to take the advance, how you would want to take the balance payment, and so on and so forth. Always mention your travel and logistic details in terms of how many people are traveling. If it's a destination wedding, have a different destination wedding clause saying for destination weddings, food, travel, expenses, visa, everything needs to be taken care by the client. Always, like, we mentioned that food, how our food needs to be arranged is also as particular, because I think the team typically survives to eat good food. So I think we stipulate that also in our timelines, in our contract. And then we also put in an additional services, that what are the additional services that one would really look out for. We also put that as a part of our, whether be it albums, be it reels, be it same day edits. So these are the add-ons that we as a company could provide you. And then you would just want the client to sign that up for you, a basic contract, agree, read it. A lot of clients tell us, अच्छा contract भेजते हैं, पर client ने आधे तो terms and conditions पढ़े ही नहीं है. So you want to make sure that the client runs by it and reads it thoroughly, so that there is no expectation mismatch once the wedding gets over.
I think that's really insightful, and I hope that answers the question. I would like to conclude the session with one last question, I think, which is also a much requested question by the attendees, is what are the tips that you would give small scale photography companies and budding businesses in how they can grow and also retain their customers?
I think be honest, be authentic, start from scratch, because you will value it a lot more. I remember when we started 10 years back, we had no backings. We all, took the help of other customers to refer us. It was a word of mouth business. So I think be honest, be authentic, undercommit and over deliver to the client. That will always get you repeat clients. Treat clients as your family members, and I think that's one of the best ways to grow your brand. I think that's the only tip or humble request that I would have to all the budding brands out there, that just be honest to your core. When you see yourself in the mirror, or when you see your brand in the mirror, make sure that the brand is built by yourself and not by what the social media wants it to look like, right? Like if today something doesn't keep you happy, like today what you see on social media is typically what I want the brand to reflect. So let the brand be an extension to your personality and not what the world would want it to look like.
Raman, what will your tips be?
So my tip would be persistence, and you know what? Even after putting in so many years in this business, I have to get up every day and do the same routine before going to bed. So you have to be very persistent. If you are wanting a business in which if you see other photographers, they are putting in stories and they're traveling, they're doing this, they're doing that. Behind all of that, you don't see the number of hours they put in getting the client, the number of hours they put in post production, the number of hours they put in delivering the whole stuff. So behind every glossy thing, there is a lot of hard work in this line. So if you cannot do hard work, the photography line is not for you. This is not a glamorous line. Makeup can be a glamorous line, but this is not a glamorous line, because in all the other businesses related to a wedding, everything ends at the wedding date. For us, everything starts from the wedding date. We are busy 365 days a year. So a lot of things will back you down. Sometimes you will not have enough money in your pocket. Sometimes you will feel frustrated that your team member has ditched you. Everything will come and go. Your persistence level should always be there.
Yeah,
So
people
this is
will
something.
come, people will go.
Yeah, this is something which has to be embedded in you, that you have to get up daily and do that hard work, hard routine daily. This is one thing. This is very important. And the second thing, which is I feel there should be a element of surprise in your work. So a lot of things I don't put in the contract, but I do deliver them, and they come via courier. Nobody from my office will go and deliver it to you. So they'll come via courier. That gives you a certain happiness that the photographer remembers you and the photographer has done that extra thing. So always add that extra thing in your package.
Got it. I think that is really insightful. I think great tips, and all photographers might have taken note. So this brings us to the end of the session.